Welcome back to the Western Wall. So we are going to see the Western Wall tunnels a little bit. I know that when the Bible says that when Solomon's temple is being built, not a chisel could be heard on the site. That is clearly not the case right now, so I apologize for the noise. But before we go into the tunnels, I'd like to give a few more thoughts about the significance of the Temple Mount, the tunnels, and everything. And another reality that it represents, in that you're only supposed to worship in the true church that Christ founded 2,000 years ago. So back in the time of during the Iron Age too, this rule was not always followed. There were other temples. They were not legitimate. They found one at Tel Motza and Tel Dan. One at Tel Motza, one at Tel Dan, one at Tel Arad. This worship was not pleasing to God, even though they were worshiping the true God. And this carries on the prohibition against ecumenism and prayer outside of the true church. It has carried on in Catholicism today. Even though Vatican II rejects it, it is a biblical truth. I'll give some examples. 2 John 11, it says, "He who says God speeds you," speaking of someone who's a heretic, "shares in his wicked works. Never mind praying with them." In Titus 3:10, it says, "A factious man, namely a heretical man, after a second admonition avoid." In Ignatius of Antioch letter to the Smyrnians, he says that after saying that those who believe in the Eucharist, that Jesus present the Blessed Sacrament, are unsaved, he says that we should keep aloof from such persons. We are called to keep aloof from such persons and not speak of them either in public or in private. Ignatius of Antioch letter to the Smyrnians, chapter 7. How do you square that with the modern ecumenical movement? 2,000 years. You can't. This has been the common teaching of the church, and remember when Christ said, "You are Peter upon this rock, the gates will not prevail against it." "You are Peter upon this rock, build my church, the gates will not prevail against it." He's referring to the church itself. So if the church has taught this 2,000 years, then, well, the Pope didn't say that. Well, fallibility applies to the church as a whole too, and it's been consistent teaching in the church that you do not pray outside of the true church. Just as you do not offer sacrifice outside of the temple. That's why they just don't put a pile of rocks here and start sacrificing cattle, because it can only be done up there under Jewish law, and that prefigures how the only place where sacrifice is pleasing to God is in the true church, even if the sacraments are valid. And yes, in case you're wondering, we do have a pope that says this. Pope Pius XI, quote, "So, venerable brethren, it is clear why this apostolic see has never allowed its subjects to take part in the assemblies of non-Catholics, for the union of Christians can only be promoted by the turn to the one true Church of Christ of those who are separated from it." Pope Pius XI, Mortalem Animos, paragraph 10. So just a few thoughts on the Western Wall and the Western Wall tunnels from a traditional Catholic perspective and the significance of it. So no ecumenism, even if Vatican II, if you believe in Vatican II, if you believe in Vatican II and believe in ecumenism, you are denying what the Church taught 2,000 years ago. And if it's not the same faith that was taught 2,000 years ago, it's not the same church. You might as well be Protestant. You may as well make up your own religion. Anyway, I'm going to pause this video. Next time you see me or hear my voice, I will be in the Western Wall tunnels. God bless. And if you get a chance, check out an SSPX church in real life, because they're teaching the truth about ecumenism, and outside the church there's no salvation. Make sure to check out my other video on the Western Wall, where I talk about outside the church there's no salvation. God bless.
Originally made by the Hasmoneans, the Maccabees, expanded upon everything with Herod has to have the word "the Great," right? It's sort of like how he was known. So we have Herod the Great and the Great Bridge, okay? So the Great Bridge stretched across this western valley, and it brought people and water into the Temple Mount area, okay? There was something known as the Pilgrim's Road that came up from where the city of David is now to the south and went all the way along the western side. We're going to catch up with it a little later in the tour. The Great Bridge went across that road. Okay, great. So here we are. This arch is now called Wilson's Arch, named after Charles Wilson, and that arch is behind us. It's a prayer area now for women, okay? And why is it called Wilson's Arch, right? Wilson's Arch is such a strange name. You would think it would be called something in Arabic or something in Hebrew or something even in Latin, right? Who's Charles Wilson? What does it have to do with anything? And so in the 19th century, the 1800s, we had these British explorers coming here. And they were so excited to find the land of the Bible and the places in the Bible, and they just couldn't wait to discover and to dig. And we also needed them because there was a cholera epidemic. In that time and space, everybody lived within the walls of the old city of Jerusalem itself. There was no hygiene. It was really dirty, and it was really full of disease, okay? So we had people coming here to help us dig for new wells. One of these persons is named Charles Wilson. We're going to meet another Charles a little bit further down the line. Charles, the same western wall that you see outside, right? It's the continuation. There are 488 meters along this walkway, right? Along the side of the retaining wall. Okay, so the wall we see outside is over here. The wall we see here is actually just to the left of the bridge. And so it's the same wall, right? Now, if I were to tell you this is Herodian stone, how would you know it's Herodian stone? Just because I'm telling you this, right? You probably know the answer, right? Yeah, okay. So because there are two things we need to have Herodian stone, right? We need to have a flat surface, and we need to have this frame, right? You see this nice frame around here? If Herod could have written his name on every single stone, he probably would have, okay? That was his way of being, right? That was sort of how he entered the world. He wanted everyone to continue to talk about Herodian stone 2,000 years after he died, and he succeeded, okay? So Herodian stone has a flat surface, a nice frame, okay, that's number one. Number two, Herodian construction is something called dry construction, which means that there's nothing holding it together except the weight of the stone. So if you look over here, you'll see that there is all sorts of stuff here, right? These are stones, but they have this cement, right? This mortar, this glue that's holding it together, and they put a few stones in to fix it in. Okay, fine, it's standing, it's great. Herod would not have any of that. It had to be beautiful, it had to be perfectly organized, right? So dry construction, nothing in between the stones. These stones are about 3 to 4 meters deep, right? That's about twice my height. I'm 5'5", so it's about 10, 11 feet, okay? Going this direction. And that makes sense. This is a retaining wall, right? It has to hold back everything, all of the weight that's coming down from up above. Right? Another thing about Herodian stone is that the top stone is set back by about 2 centimeters from the stone beneath it. It gives it, every stone goes out a little bit further. They were engineering geniuses, right? Romans were engineering geniuses. Now what happened? Well, there's Herodian stone down below. There's Herodian stone along the side. What happened here? Well, remember we said that we're on the Syrian-African rift, and it's a fault line, and we have earthquakes, right? It was an earthquake in 1033, and this part of the wall fell. Okay? Now, when you got to fix things in a hurry, do you bother to make a nice, beautiful stone? No. You find the stones that you can, you slap them in, and these are 1033. These are marks by the rebuilders. Right? You see their trowel marks to fix it and fix it fast.
navigate through. It was originally built by the Hasmoneans, by the Maccabees, before Herod. And it was actually cut off. Herod didn't want to use it. He had the bridge to bring water over. So it's dry, and we're going to end up with Struthian Pool, which is our last stop.
Okay, who made this one?
Tunnels.
Who made this one?
There.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's the Herodian
Wait,
mason.
this
You can
one?
see by the frame.
Somebody in the
Alright. Shade this one. Hey, man. We're gonna mark yourself. Ooh. Water.
slimy.
Saw that screen, saw the temple rotating on a 360 kind of rotation. And I said, see that pool on the northern side? Remember that pool? So this is where we are now. We're at the Struthian Pool. Can you guys come in? Can you see? Do you want to? I mean, do whatever works for you, but.
Via Dolorosa is that way.
The Struthian Pool was an open-air pool. It was here in the time of Herod. It was here in Jerusalem, even before Herod. It was a nice water collecting pool that took care of the residents of Jerusalem. Okay? Now, when the temple's destroyed in 70 CE, right, the temple's destroyed, and the Jews flee to the surrounding area. Okay, they're not clear whether they came back into Jerusalem or not, but there was another rebellion, right? 70 CE is the first destruction of the temple. 132 to 135, there's another rebellion. It's called the Bar Kokhba rebellion, or it's sometimes called the Second Revolt. Okay. Now, when that happens, things are really bad, right? And the Roman emperor at the time was a man named Hadrian. And Hadrian, as we say, as historians will say, if you rebel against the Roman Empire once, they might even respect you for it. If you rebel against the Roman Empire twice, they've had it with you. Okay, and they're going to put this down super, super hard. The Romans take their best troubleshooting general all the way from Britain, right? From Roman Britain, right? Londinium. They brought him all the way down through Europe into the Middle East. This guy's name was Severus, right? Julius Severus squashes this rebellion really hard. By 135, Jews are not allowed in the city at all. Hadrian says, we're changing the rules of the game. There will be no more Jews in the city of Jerusalem. We are changing the name of Jerusalem. No longer is it Jerusalem, it's Aelia Capitolina. Okay? We are going to change the name of the area. It's not going to be Judea anymore. What's it going to be? Syria, Palestine. Who said that? Raise your hand. Yay! All right, we got it. Syria, Palestina. Okay? So this changes everything. So the Judea-Palestina conflict has been going on for 1900 years. Okay?
So apparently the tour just ended, and apparently it ends, the Western World Tunnel ends with the Via Dolorosa, so I found it interesting. So, traditional Catholic, again, the significance of the Western Wall and the Temple Mount for us as traditional Catholics is that prefigures the one true Church of Christ, just as there is only one temple. This is a doctrine that was held. Again, we can see in numerous passages from the Old Testament down below. In the New Testament. It also prefigures our belief as traditional Catholics that we are to keep our religion exclusively Catholic today. And we end the tour right where the Via Dolorosa begins. God bless, and if you give it a chance, please check out an SSPX Church in real life. God bless.